Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Municipality of Monroeville's Citizens Night. We also have a 2014 budget public hearing, and we also have council work session. Today is Thursday, March 6, 2014, approximately 7 p.m. If we'd all kindly rise for the Lord's Prayer, and followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and give us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not to temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Right now, ladies and gentlemen, I'll go off the list of those that signed in. We'll bring you up first, and then I'll open the floor up for anybody else that would like to address council. But right now, Dave McMaster, if you would, please.
Do I have to sign in again?
No. Just
okay.
state your name and your...
Dave McMaster, live in Monroeville. Hello to all the council, new council people. Congratulations on your win. Glad to see you here. I am the other groundhog. I come out and didn't see my shadow. I guarantee we're going to have spring next month. And when you see me, I represent spring because I represent fishing. The Pitcairn Monroeville Sportsman's Club, which I'm a member, I represent them. We adopted the Turtle Creek stream down, starting at the bridge on Haymaker, clear down to Forbes, past that, down to the industrial. And what we do is the Fish Commission brings in trout, and we float stock it. So this, the 15th of March, not this coming Saturday, next Saturday, we have our annual cleanup. We get everybody down there and walk up and down the shorelines and the parking areas and clean up all the trash that's been collected over the year. This helps for our stocking. That's on March 15th, and I appreciate all the help we can get. If you know the Boy Scout troops and want to come down and earn some merit badges, or just people don't fish but like to clean up the environment, we appreciate you come on down and help us out. I'll be back here again next month because we're going to be stocking the trout on April 8th and again on April 24th. We float stock it, like I say. What we do, we put in maybe 3,000, 4,000 fish each stocking. We have plastic barrels that we made for floating trout. We can put about 300-400 trout in each barrel. We usually meet down at the bridge, and the truck comes down there, and we load about 4 barrels. We float as far as we can go, dumping the trout out with our nets, and then we throw some buckets in around there. Then we go down below to BY Pond. We don't stock BY Pond. We stock behind it, from there down to the industrial park. So it'll be Saturday at 9 a.m. I'll have coffee and donuts and hot chocolate. And then I'll be back next month to remind you about the stocking. It'll be, like I say, April 8th at 12 noon, and also the 23rd of April, 12 noon. So, is there any questions? You'll need if you buy you'll need a fishing license, plus you'll need a trout stamp along with it. So that's it. Get the kids interested and bring them down.
If somebody wants to volunteer to come and help, should they bring anything, wear any particular clothing?
Yeah, wear your old clothes and wear a hip boots or waders, chest waders if you want. When we're cleaning up, we don't hardly go into the stream that much. But when we're stocking, if you want to take a barrel down, you better have chest waders because there's some holes down in there. Right? We have one little short fella like that, and he does our underwater stocking because he always he manages to get down in a hole and he puts them in there where he wants them. You know, we kid him with that. So, yeah, bring your leaky boots. We don't care. But for the cleanup, wear your old clothes and some boots, and sometimes weather permitting. If it's raining too hard, we won't have it. But if it's sprinkling or something, if it's snowing real heavy, we won't work either. You know, that's understandable. So.
Dave, you said earlier that they're required to have a fishing license and a trod stamp if they want to volunteer? No.
No.
Okay.
No, the volunteer, you don't have to have no license at all.
Okay.
Even for the stocking or the cleanup.
Okay.
If you throw a line in the water, you better have a license.
Thank you.
Okay? Thank you.
Thanks, Dave.
Thanks, Dave. Robert Serafini, if you would, please.
My name is Robert Serafini. I am a Monroeville resident. I have two things I wanted to discuss. Mr. Little, on the budget meeting of last week, when Beth was up here talking, you said you would get back to her in emails on two questions. One was on the Highmark 339 reimbursement and the longevity pay. I was very much interested in that, and you just said you would email that to her. Would it be possible not only to email her, but could you give us your answers to those questions during the meeting sometime tonight? I'd appreciate it.
Sure.
I mean, I was interested in those two questions myself, and I just think it should be made public as opposed to just emailing. I appreciate what you did for her, but I had some questions about that too. Okay, my other thing is, last week I was in Giant Eagle, and since I had spoke last month when they put a request for the 1 mil tax for the library, and I spoke out against it. Someone come up to me in Giant Eagle and asked me, is the president of the library a Monroeville resident? And I could not answer that, and I wish somebody could answer that for me, please.
I'm the president of the board, and I'm a Monroeville resident.
Mayor, we can't hear.
You just want to just state your name for the record and if you live in Monroeville.
Sure. I'm Lisa Fennessy. I'm the president of the Monroeville Library Board, and I'm a Monroeville resident. I live in the 7th Ward on Greenleaf.
Very good.
Okay, someone questioned me on that at Giant Eagle, and I did not know, and I said I would find out. That's what we should do. Thank you. That's all I have tonight.
Very good. Beth Fishman.
Beth Fishman, I'm a resident of Monroeville. Mr. Mayor, at last month's council meeting, in your concluding remarks, you addressed Chad Steubenport for coming up here and speaking to council as a resident of this community. Your remarks were rude, they were unprofessional, and to say the least, they had a chilling effect on people, and I do think you owe him a public apology. You know that he's been elected to the school board just 2 months ago, and he's had nothing to do with school taxes. So I think that when the time is proper and he's here, you should apologize to him for those remarks because they were way out of line.
Just so you know that Chad and I had our conversation, so.
Well, you embarrassed him in public, you should apologize in public. And Mr. Little, if you could give the information Mr. Serafini asked for, do you have that now? I think what I had asked for was the total amount of longevity pay.
Okay, the total amount of longevity pay, I do not have that because that's all dispersed throughout every department. I don't have that at my fingertips right now.
Again, though, I asked for that last week. How difficult is it to get that?
No, that's not difficult. I am remiss in that.
Okay, and I know you did email me back on the deductibles.
Correct.
But your email made no sense to me, so.
What was it about the email?
My
that made
question
sense?
is, there's a line item for $339,000 for Highmark deductibles.
Mm-hmm.
What I asked was, do you give employees their deductibles back? Is
Correct.
that what that $339,000 is?
Correct.
So, insurance rates were changed because it would be less expensive if they went to a higher deductible, yet you're still taking the deductible out of the pocket of the municipality.
If you raise your deductible on your car insurance, on any insurance, if you raise your deductible, then your premium goes down.
If
But-
you're giving them back that deductible, was there really any cost savings if you've put out $339,000?
Yes.
Was it substantial?
I don't have that number off the top of my head, but Monroeville had been doing that when I came on board here in 2010.
Well, again, there's a lot of things that Monroeville's doing that have to be changed. And I will address that as I go through my notes. The other thing I wanted to clarify is Act 32 and the comments that were directed to Pat Fulkerson. People made it seem as if Mr. Fulkerson wasn't doing his job because revenues have increased so drastically. And I think what the public doesn't understand is the employer is now taking that money out of the employee's paycheck, whereas when Mr. Fulkerson was collecting it, it was up to the employee to pay him. And we all know there aren't a lot of honest people in this world, and now they can't lie with the employer being involved. And that's part of the reason why collections have gone up so drastically.
One thing I'd like to add to that, Beth, also, it's state law that if you as an individual or a company don't take care of the EIT, the fines are enormous. So that's why you're seeing, and I agree with your comment. Pat did a great job for us there. But the law certainly gave a lot more teeth to that issue.
Well, and I just don't think that was clear to people last week. Council, you've had this budget for a month. I want to know if you've identified any areas where taxes can be cut, because you've all sat up here and said, I'm going to go through line item by line item. Has anybody identified any way to cut?
I have, yeah, and I'm going to discuss it with council. Absolutely. And we all have ideas, for sure.
And is the vote on passing the budget tonight?
No.
It is not.
Okay, thank you. So there is a chance for changes to be made still. And I understand the changes can't be made to employee benefits because of contracts and what have you. But I think it's time that the gravy train has to end, or you have to cut employees. It's one or the other. The employees are getting benefits that no company, I work for a Fortune 100 company and don't get the benefits that Monroeville employees get. This municipality has to be brought in line with the private sector. There's just no way that we can continue to pay longevity pay, buy back sick days. The employee contribution, Mr. Patterson addressed that at the last budget meeting, how under contributing the employees of this municipality are to their health care benefits. The buyback for a spouse, tell me one company in the private sector that still does any of these. And I realize you can't do this, but I think these are things that you have to start addressing as these contracts come up for renewal. The other high-ticket item that I see is the pensions. And it would be foolish to change the police pension, but I think every non-uniform pension should be converted to a 401K moving forward. The other questions I have is, when was the last time an RFP was sent out for legal services?
That's reviewed every year.
But when is
Council-
the last time a request for proposal for fees was
It's
sent
been a
out?
lot of years, but Beth, every council has a choice to retain the same, if they're satisfied with their legal services, they do not have to put an RFP up.
Don't you have an obligation to us taxpayers to put an RFP out to see if there is someone
I would-
less than $210,000 a
That
year?
would be a councilmatic action, that if they're unsatisfied with their legal services, I'm sure they would do.
It has nothing to do with being satisfied or unsatisfied. You can be completely satisfied. Do you not have a fiduciary duty to me as a taxpayer to see if you can find legal services for less than $210,000 a year?
Again, I have no gauge on that, but that's certainly a councilmatic action. But again, if they're satisfied, every year that's reviewed, that's all I can tell you. And
If an RFP isn't sent out to see what other people are charging, then how can you review it?
it's, again, as the mayor, I have no authority in that. I'm just telling you, they can do that at the end of every year.
Well, while we're on legal fees, Mr. Little, can you tell me why the zoning hearing budget for legal fees went from $5,925 in 2013 to $20,000 in the 2014 budget, that's a heck of a jump.
Can I answer that, why it went up that high?
Yes.
No, I didn't put that number in there.
Did you not review? Who put the number in? I guess is my first
Well,
question.
the only answer I can give to that, Beth, is that there probably was some kind of extra legal work that Mr. Ratcher for the zoning hearing board was doing, or maybe was about to do, and that's why I didn't touch that, okay?
Council, I would ask you to look at all the legal fees the municipality pays. The zoning hearing board, I don't know, do we pay the planning commission? Do we pay the Monroeville Finance Authority? Do they all have their own hearings? I understand civil service and zoning do need separate attorneys for a lot of reasons. But what about all the other legal fees that are going out the door in this municipality? And I would ask that you
Beth, if I
review
could
that.
comment on that line item, probably there could have been transfers made on that one line item where maybe it was more than $5,000, and maybe that's why, that is a significant jump, I agree with you. Okay, and maybe $5,000, wasn't enough. Maybe there was, outstanding invoices there that are about to come due, and maybe that's why that $20,000 was put in there.
But again, I could understand doubling it to 10,000, but not 20. Another area where I think council can look for cutbacks is our vehicle fleet. How many vehicles do we have?
In total,
Yes.
off the top of my head, I don't know how many we have in total. It's a lot.
Do we need them all?
Yes.
Why? I mean, I understand there's police cars.
Well, we need the police cars. I would let each individual department answer that. I mean, if you have anything specific for the police, public works, and the planning and zoning on the vehicles we have there. I mean, a lot of our public works vehicles are not in great shape, Beth.
I'm talking about cars, like police cars, fire cars.
There is, yeah, there is one
Whoever, I don't know who drives cars in the municipality, but it just seems like
There is one
that's an
vehicle,
area
but-
where it could be cut.
The chief has said there is one vehicle, the van, that, we don't need, the police van.
My other questions are, one of the aspects that early intervention program looks at is a review of operating efficiencies. And I know if you don't want to do the whole program, if you're friends with Mr. Foreman, maybe you could just get him to come in and review our operating efficiencies, because based on these numbers, it just seems to make no sense. The Emergency Communication Department is paying $54,000 for a temp, $60,000 in overtime, and $382,000 in salaries. Something's not right if you're paying $60,000 in overtime and another $54,000 to a temp.
Maybe that's because we don't have enough employees there. Usually when you have overtime, that's the reason.
Well, shouldn't that be looked at for its operating efficiency? And that's not the only department. For whatever reason, the mayor and council have an employee that gets paid $25,500, and they've also budgeted $23,000 for a temp. So you have $48,500 there.
Say that again, Beth?
On page 63, mayor and council, there's salary for a regular employee of $25,500. There's a line item for a temp of $23,000. The refuse department has temps budgeted at $60,000. And they get overtime of $15,000.
Beth, what page you on?
The mayor and council is on page 63, I believe.
Okay. That's for summer employment. That's for the college and high school kids.
And you don't think that's a program that could be cut now that we're facing a 1.5+ mill tax increase?
Well, it has been cut in half. Yes.
But not totally. What, my point is, there is a lot of temporary salaries. Refuse Department has $60,000, Cable has $10,000, the Senior Center has $19,000. You know, you give us this chart how you cut all these employees, but we're paying all these temps. So really, what good is it cutting? I guess we saved a fortune in benefits, but we're still paying a fortune to temporary employees. And it just doesn't sound very efficient. On the Refuse Department, I've been told that the workers do not punch a time clock. Is that true?
That is true,
Why is that?
because they come into work on time.
They pick up their truck somewhere. Correct?
Well, if they drive a truck.
I think
Mike, do you want to answer that, or
probably
Dom?
answer that, or Dom.
You got Dom coming up.
They do punch in, they all punch in the morning, they punch a clock. They're not allowed to leave the building until 4:30. And the reason what you say temps, not temps, they're extras. And the reason we have extras is because those guys are entitled to days off. When they take a day off, we need somebody to take their place.
Well, that makes perfect sense.
Well, that's what it is, and they don't punch out because the only one that punches out is the driver, because when they're done at the end of the day, he goes to the dump, and he's up there sometimes for an hour or something, so they go home, they're done. So they just go from where it is, he comes back to the shop with the truck himself.
My concern with that, Mr. Dice, I'll address this to you. I think that is a tremendous wage and labor hour issue problem waiting to happen.
I don't think so,
Why don't you?
because I don't think it is. I think the way they're doing it's fine. I don't have a problem with it, Beth.
You also didn't have a, well, we won't even go there. Okay.
Well, if you don't
Thank
want to
sir.
go there, don't go there.
No, I'm not going to.
And you know, Beth, I just wanted to say, you know, you mentioned about some of the temps for the TV-15. That's some of our camera folks. They just, as we need them, that's where their salaries come from. So, you know, if we sit down and actually go through your line item by line item, you'll find that there's a lot of the stuff makes sense, and it does save the OPEB. We're trying to keep the employee costs down and the legacy costs down, if you will.
Well, okay, I have a question about ambulance service, and I guess that's tied into fire service. And I understand we're under ordinance to give a contribution to the fire department every year for the next X number of years. When an ambulance picks up someone, do they get paid for that?
Does who get paid for it?
The ambulance company that goes on that call.
They send out a bill, yes.
And does that money come back to the municipality, or does it stay with the ambulance
It
company?
stays with the fire company.
Why is that? I
'Cause
mean,
they couldn't afford to operate if they didn't do that.
Well, the municipality's paying $84,700. Do they collect more than that on ambulance calls?
Yes. I mean, there's no way they could operate without doing that.
What I'm saying is why,
That comes out to about $3 a resident, what you see in that budget.
and that's fine, but why doesn't the ambulance company give that back?
Because they couldn't pay their bills.
You just told me they made more than $84,000.
That $84,000 is just maintenance.
Ron, what's it take to run one of the ambulance?
Well, the one ambulance cost, our last ambulance that we purchased cost about $194,000. That was just a strip, that's not equipped. That's just the vehicle. And then you have to have the guys, and they're volunteer, they take the ambulance calls, and there's a station you have to house them in, and, you know, you could go on and on and on with the expenses.
It doesn't count any of the equipment inside the
It
ambulance.
doesn't count any of the equipment inside the ambulance. The heart monitor cost about,
I mean, this goes on in every community that I work in.
I understand that, but they're billing people when they go out for these calls, and they're getting reimbursed.
And
right.
generally, the insurance company pays it.
So if the insurance company is paying the ambulance company more than $84,000, why couldn't the ambulance company reimburse the municipality for the $84,000?
How do you expect them to pay their bills?
Because you're telling me they're getting more than $84,000.
That's through 5 fire stations, through 8 ALS units.
Do you know how much is collected on from the total of all ambulance calls?
I could not recite that number. All I'm saying is that my fire station, for example, has approximately $16,000 a month in bills.
And I'm not asking you to take money out of your pocket, So if you have
I think
16,000,
44 years of volunteering coming to your house already came out of my pocket. 44
and,
years
yeah,
I volunteered
excuse me, but you're a
for free.
volunteer on your own. No one asked you to do that. That's what a volunteer is.
That's a
And
bit of
I
an
do more
insult.
than enough volunteer work, so don't even go there.
I'm just
What I'm
telling you,
asking is, we're facing a 1.5 mil tax hike. Why can't the ambulance company help out by paying a portion of what the municipality gives them back if they're collecting over and above what the municipality pays?
I am thoroughly lost about what you're getting at.
Yeah,
but
the
they-
math
Mr.
doesn't
Little,
work.
do you understand my,
The math
Question.
doesn't work any which way.
Beth, conceptually, I understand what you're talking about, but I'm sure Mr. Harvey knows what he's talking about, since he's been with the fire companies and ambulance service for over 40 years, as far as how they pay their bills and what it takes to pay their bills.
I'm talking about the money they bill, that someone sends them a reimbursement check.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying.
It goes back into the fire station to pay the bills.
Maybe the thing is that if it's $84,000 that we're giving them,
Correct.
what it sounds like is that it costs more than $84,000 to run ambulance
Exactly.
service.
And
So
I
they need-
understand that.
So I guess they need the contribution from the municipality and also the reimbursement for the calls.
And what
Understand.
I'm asking, is there a break-even point? And I don't know the numbers, but I'm just asking, is there a break-even point where some of that money could be returned to the municipality? Strictly from ambulance calls, nothing else. Where someone else is paying for that ambulance. That's all I'm asking.
There's not a community in Allegheny County that I don't know that that's the way it happens.
And how many communities are facing a 1.5 mil tax increase right now after a tax increase last year?
I'm just saying to you that every guy in Monroeville at the 5 stations volunteers their time to try to keep that stuff down, and so it's not expensive to the resident. I don't know what else you want them to give.
I don't want them to give anything. I don't want to take a penny out of their pocket. What I want is, if there is a break-even point from insurance reimbursements that come back to the fire hall, part of the money that the municipality gives you get reimbursed.
So you're saying that if they end up with a couple bucks at the end of the year, you want them to give it back to the municipality?
I'm saying, what if between all 5 fire companies, $300,000 is collected? Is it unreasonable for me to think that something should be given back for the...
$300,000 isn't dent our budget.
I'm not talking about the fire budget, just the ambulance alone.
It's the same thing. The fire companies run the ambulances.
But you have to have the ambulance service segregated out from the fire company. You can't, I mean, a fire truck costs 3 or 4 or 5 times as much as an ambulance.
But I'm saying it's the same organization. The fire company owns the fire trucks and the ambulances, they run it all. Station 4 has fire trucks and ambulances. Station 5 has fire trucks and ambulances. Station 1 has fire trucks and ambulances.
For accounting purposes, you have to know how much is coming in for ambulance
Well,
calls.
they know how much the residents donate, they know how much the EMS brings in, they know how much the borough gives us, they know how much, yeah, that's true.
I'm not talking about resident contributions. That's totally separate. I'm just talking about money that is refunded from insurance companies.
But they need that to continue to operate.
Ron, help me out here. Don't we have a couple of paid staff also that, because during the day,
During the daylight hours, manpower has gotten so tough that yes, each station usually pays a crew to be on, and they're the volunteers. There's no,
but I'm talking about they're actually paid staff though,
by the fire station.
by the fire station, correct?
So, Mr. Little, then, I guess my question to follow up on that is, are the fire trucks and the ambulance, are they considered Monroeville vehicles for insurance purposes and liability?
Yes.
Another department where, again, there's tremendous amount of overtime, and salary, is the Emergency Communications Department. And again, I guess that's the same, you bring in temps for $114,000?
Well, Beth, a lot of times when you're paying overtime, it's less expensive than to hire somebody because of benefits. Now, I'm not here to say that I'm an advocate of having a lot of part-time employees. I think it's better to have full-time employees because they have ownership to a position and it makes for a better employee. But you do run into costs with overtime with dispatchers. And you run into overtime costs with a lot of employees, police officers, for various reasons. Now, we had 2 dispatchers that, were dismissed, or 3 dispatchers that were dismissed in September, and that's the reason for the overtime.
Well, why weren't they replaced?
They have been.
Okay. The other topic is consultants. There's a $15,000 line item in community development for consultants. There's a $71,000 line item in the IS department for consultants. Why do we need these people?
Well, to run the municipality, first of all, in the planning department is for Chester engineers. It could be for Chester engineers, most likely for things of stormwater, or it could be HRG for traffic. Engineering companies diversify, not diversify, but they have a specialty for traffic, for stormwater, for civil. Now, as far as on the IT end, we do not have an IT director anymore, so the previous council decided to go with an outside company. And it's virtually the same cost as having an IT director, except for the benefits as it is to have the outside
So
company.
it's probably actually less to have the outside contractor. The final thing I want to point out is, although everybody badmouthed the hotel tax idea, and it's going to keep residents out of Monroeville, let me just give you a few comparable rates for hotels in the area. If you stay at the Spring Hill Suites in Bakery Square, it's $189. If you stay at the Spring Hill Suites in Southside Work, it's $149. In Monroeville, it's $109. The Holiday Inn West Mifflin's $132. The Holiday Inn in Monroeville is $81. Hampton Inn is either $199 or $299. In Monroeville, it's $129. The Courtyard Waterfront is $124. Monroeville, it's $119. A Red Roof Inn rents anywhere from $54 to $63 outside of Monroeville. In Monroeville, it's $75. The Days Inn runs anywhere from $74 to $91. In Monroeville, it's $65. So even if that tax would be passed and would be added on, our rates still would be less than everybody else. And I can tell you, if that has to be passed at a state level, there is not one municipality that's not going to jump on that bandwagon and impose the same tax to bring money, especially municipalities like Homestead with all their new hotels that aren't going to add that on to theirs too. So that is, I think, a bad argument that it's going to keep people out of Monroeville if we impose that tax. And council, I haven't forgot that you pay taxes too, but I don't understand it. What I don't understand is you have the power to change this. And I hope that you take the time in the next week or whenever the budget vote is and really go through this and make sure that's done. To the 4 new members, you were elected because people wanted a change, and the change was not to have 7 people up here saying, yes, sir, to a $1.5 million increase. Thank you.
I'd like to make a comment about the budget. The tax increase proposed is not for the operational needs of the community. Basically, this is a lot of legacy costs and capital costs. That's what Monroeville is staring in the face. And if you don't have an increase of revenue, then you're going to be kicking the can down the road on what's coming down the pike in maybe 5 years and even beyond that. So this is long-term expenses coming down the pike. Beth has some good points. We all go through the budget and try to scrutinize it. The department heads who are sitting here this evening, they have done zero-based budgeting going back 4 or 5 years ago, and I think Beth is the one that mentioned that, or somebody else at the, I think at the last council meeting last month. That has been done. There is fat in every budget. I don't care what budget you go into, in what municipality, in what organization, in what corporation. Are there things that could be cut? Sure. There's things that could be cut. I think every department head here who is here this evening will tell you they have cut and cut and cut, especially for the last 4 or 5 years, and especially on the personnel level, because that's where, when you cut, you're going to have a significant savings on personnel because of the benefits and the wages. Beth is correct as far as some of the benefits. She's correct. And they are contractual. And those are things that have to be dealt with, and this council knows that. And they do have to be dealt with. And that's not people should get a fair wage, they should get fair benefits. There's no question about that. But what went on 20, 30 years, it's coming due. And the municipality cannot afford, because we don't have the fund balance anymore. As I mentioned last month, the community sold the sanitary sewer system to the municipal authority for $12 million. That kept a tax increase at bay for a decade. It's not there anymore. It subsidized the operational cost and the capital cost of this community. It's not there anymore. This is not an operational tax increase. It has to do more with capital, and it has to do with legacy costs.
Capital, you might want to say infrastructure stuff.
Infrastructure. Taking care of your roads, bridges, stormwater, which, as I mentioned at the last council meeting, is aging. And it's going to continue to age. Monroeville will fall on that slope on that graph I showed at the public hearing last week. And I think it's incumbent upon this council and myself to try to stop that. And that's something that happens very incrementally. It doesn't happen quickly. But you start to slide, and before you know it, you have a lot of abandoned houses, you have absentee ownership, the graffiti starts, the crime starts, and it may take 15 years, 20 years, but I don't think anybody sitting in this room wants that to happen. And as I said last week, a tax increase is not going to stop that. What's going to stop that is economic development. But you want to see residents, you want to see businesses move in here, but they want to see a good community with good infrastructure, good schools, and that's what the tax increase is about.
Robert Hess. Just state your name for the record.
Robert Heiss, and I am a resident of Monroeville most of my life. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen of council, Mr. Little, Mr. Mayor, it's a privilege to be able to speak to you good people tonight. What I was going to start off with is I wanted to talk about the unreasonable request of the library board to want to have a referendum to tax us all, not only the residents of this community, but the business owners of this community that own property here. 1 full mill, which, from my understanding, 1 full mill, and you can help me out with this, is anywhere between $2.1 and $2.4 million a year, forever. And once this tax, if this millage is approved by the voters, and I can't believe that people in this community would actually want to think about, literally, with the tax increase that's looming, that you people didn't really have any control over. That was previous councils. But now, with what they want, I want everybody in TV land, and I want everybody back there to think about a number. The number 5. 5 mills. Council's proposing, Mr. Little's proposing that we move up to 4 mills. That's not my argument tonight. Plenty of other people have comments to make about that. But I want you to think of that number 5. 4 is, okay, could be doable, but 5 is that is a business killer. That is a job killer. You tell me what business is going to, and the businesses are always picked on, but one of the reasons that our millage, aside from what Mr. Little made the statement with the reserve fund that's gone now, with the sale of the sanitary sewers to the municipality, one of the reasons for years our millage rate didn't go up was because it was pretty much on the backs of the businesses, the business privilege tax, the mercantile tax, and the like. Well, you know what? Take a look out there. Yeah, there's people out there. They're not spending money the way they are, and we still have plenty of vacant spaces out there. And much to the mayor's credit, that got nothing but flack from the outgoing council, much to the mayor's credit, he did what he could to try and promote this community, to highlight it, to get more businesses in here. You did, Mr. Mayor, and as a resident, I appreciate that. The thing with 5 mills, when you look at 5 mills, let's look at the people who are living in this community that have paid their mortgages off. They worked and they scrimped and they saved and they put their kids through school, through college, and now they have their mortgages paid off. But what they've seen is their utility bills go up, their income is a fixed income. By the way, in 4 years, I'll be on a fixed income. And now they're going to see that 1 mil additional that the library's requesting. That could be a game changer for a lot of people. I know it's certainly going to be a game changer for the seniors. People are cash poor today. They live in their homes, they paid their homes off, only to watch the taxes go out of sight. Hey, look, I'm not overly enthused with a 1.5 plus millage increase. But what I'm saying to you is it's not your fault. It really isn't. This is what you have to work with. This is what you have to do. And I'm sure that you're going to work with due diligence to try and cut as much as you can to make it reasonable. But if you take the library over here with a bloated budget that they want, bloated, you know, I'm going to tell you people right here and right now, I'm up here speaking, and I have a right to speak, and I will not tolerate being heckled. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The rest of you people, you can go up, you can say what you want, and you'll have your opportunity to come up here, but I would ask you, please, you're already loaded with arrogance, so don't show us how rude you are. I would appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Okay, so the bottom line and the period end is that they're getting about 1.4 million now, based on what the municipality contributes to them, based upon what they get from other sources, state, federal, or whatever. So now what they want is, instead of $1.4 million a year, they want $2.4 million a year. For what? They want an elevator? They don't need an elevator in that building. I've been in that building. I've been around that building. They've got 2 levels. Basically, it's a basement with a main floor. With handicap entrances, you've got ground level entrances on both levels of that building. I say if they want an elevator, do what the fire companies do. Fundraisers. Go out and scrimp and save and do whatever you have to do and put your elevator in. The other thing is that the municipality pays for their capital improvements. You guys, we've paid for their air conditioning and their heating systems. We've paid for new windows. Do I begrudge them that? Absolutely not. Do I feel that the library has a significant meaning within the community? That it's an asset? Absolutely. But like anything else, they have to live within their means and not on the backs of the taxpayers. You tell me how many people you know are going to want to buy a house here and then they look at the tax liability. When they can go over to Plum and it's 4 mils or less, why would you come here when you're literally going to be slammed? Because those people can't live within their means. The other thing is that the realization is that the whole scope of the library system is changing. Borders Books went out of business. The high school and the schools have libraries. And everybody, you want a book? Nobody. You go online. You do your research online. You can do your research and you can read your books on your laptops and on your iPhones. Do they serve a function? Sure they do. Sure they do. But for us, for them to expect us as citizens to support them to a point where now they want a Taj Mahal, when we have 5 fire companies here, and I'm going to address Mrs. Fishman's comments, we have 5 fire companies here, give them that $2.4 million and see what they'll do with it, because they ain't living on that. Now, you're going to ask me how I know? I've been a member of the Monroeville Volunteer Fire Department since 1974, and I am presently a life member now. So I've seen it all, okay? And I'm going to address Mrs. Fishman's comments about that, because she kind of raised the hair in the back of my neck when she brought that up, though I do agree with things that she has to say from time to time. But getting back to this library thing, what I'm going to say to all of you people out in TV land and everybody listening here, we can put a stop to this. And it's really very simple. I have a plan. Now, I'm not tacky enough to give my phone number on TV in front of council. But I'm going to tell you, I can't do it alone. I need help. And I've been talking to some people, and they're pretty much agreeing with what I'm having to say. So just go to the Monroeville phone directory. I'm under Max H. Heiss, H-E-I-S-S. I have 24-hour voice messaging, 24/7. Call me. We'll put a group together. We're going to stop this. People, I'm begging you, don't roll over and put your paws up in the air and forget about this until you get your tax bill. I can tell you right here and right now, on my little 1,100 square foot home, okay, my municipal taxes are going to double. But you know what? If this thing goes through, but I'm going to tell you, if you put the library here and you put our services over here, what would you take? What would you trade off for? Them having a Taj Mahal library because they don't want to do whatever it takes to fundraise and scrimp and save and do whatever. They'll claim they do, but they just want to sit up there and put this on the backs of the taxpayers. Or do I want my streets paved and patched? And do I want my snow removed and my streets salted? And by the way, I want to tell Mr. Adams and the municipal employees, thank you. You worked under a lot of stress with this winter, and I know the municipality is out of salt. And this last storm we had, those guys, Mr. Adams' team, did a hell of a job with what they had to work with, which goes back to the library. Maybe they could do a hell of a job with what they have to work with and quit asking for more. Do I want my roads plowed? Absolutely. If I dial 911, do I want an ambulance? Do I want a fire truck? Do I want a police car? You better believe I do. Where do you think all this money comes from? Picture this. You're teenagers. You're sitting in a soda fountain. And you saw these old Norman Rockwell pictures of you got a guy with his date, and they're both sucking through a straw. They're both drawing down on a milkshake. How many straws can you put in that milkshake before there's really not much left? Stop and think about that. And now we put this 1 mil tax on top of this. Oh, we talk about the homeowners. What the heck do you think one Monroeville Center is going to pay over the head of that additionally? Let's talk about the apartment complexes. Do you honestly think the people living in those apartment complexes can say, well, I don't own anything here, it's no big deal to me? Oh, yes, it is. You think Walnut Capital that owns the Ivanhoe Apartments now, you think for 1 minute they're not going to pass that off? We want to try and keep people here. We want to try and make this community more business-friendly. We want to make this community more friendly for our seniors. Everybody's struggling right now. I have sat back for years, and I've just watched things happen and never said anything about it. But this was a straw that broke the camel's back. Now, I never did anything behind anyone's back because I did call Mrs. Fennessy, and I told her I was going to speak tonight, and I told her it wasn't going to be pretty. And I did this out of respect for her husband, David. I went all through school with him. Haven't seen him in years, but I wasn't going to pull any surprises on somebody I graduated high school with. So much for the library. Remember, Thou Max H. Heiss. We'll put it, 24/7, my voice messaging will kick in. I'll get back to you, we'll put a stop to this. Okay, that's the first thing. As far as the fire companies go, Mrs. Fishman's comment, the fire departments over the years have, it goes without saying, have provided a level of service within this community that for the most part has been unsurpassed. I have to be careful what I say. We keep fire department business within the fire department, but as a life member, I can say this, and I will say this. And Mrs. Fishman or anybody else, I invite you to do the math, for I know that it was back in the early 80s, it might have even been 1980. Mr. Harvey probably remembers this. There was talk, because of the fire official we had back then, there was talk of what would it take to start and maintain a paid fire department here. Maybe 8 people on the shift as opposed to what you have now. Back then, the startup fee was millions of dollars, and at that point in time, it would be $5 to $8 million a year. So, Mrs. Fishman, let the firemen take the insurance money that they get from running the ambulances to pay for their buildings, to pay for their utilities. Oh, yes. The fire departments pay for their buildings. They built their buildings. They paid their buildings, they maintain their buildings, and they pay their utilities. So it's really very simple. Why don't we do this? You want us to quit? Fine. Then, Mrs. Fishman, are you and the rest of the citizens prepared to pick up the tab for what it would cost to put a paid fire department in here? So get off their backs, people. Let them go. You can only kick them so long, and they're finally going to say, the heck with this, I don't need this. And you're right, nobody took a gun to any of our heads to volunteer our time. We did it because we wanted to. But when we get mud thrown in our face, I can't speak for all these people, but I know you get mud thrown in your face, and how long is it going to be before you say, the hell with it? Thank you.
That was everybody on the list that signed up. I'll now leave it open for anybody else who would like to address council. Please, come on up. If you'll sign in and then just state your name and you live in Monroeville. There should be a pen right there on the side.
There's a pen right here.
There you go. Just state your name and you live in Monroeville.
Okay.
You don't have to give your address.
Okay. My name is Daniel Marston. I live in Monroeville. Mr. Mayor, members of council, Mr. Dice. I'm actually here as a representative of the Human Needs and Resources Advisory Board. As you may know, we are a board associated with the municipality,
Yes.
which our job is to determine where the needs are in the community and to present to council recommendations about how best those needs can be addressed. I'm here for a couple reasons. One is, as the Home Rule Charter states, we're supposed to give an update periodically, so that's what I'm doing. I'm also here specifically with a recommendation that we have. We have been meeting for a number of months and addressed a number of issues. Transportation has been an issue that we've addressed quite a bit, as have other issues. And we've been discussing a number of things related to transportation issues in Monroeville, and certainly I expect that we will have other recommendations at some point. But one issue has come up a number of times, sort of come to the head of the list that I wanted to bring up to you. It has to do with the issue, the fact that there is a a bus, PAT bus, that goes to UPMC East several times per day. There is no bus that goes to Forbes Hospital. We have, if you look at, Mr. Lowe, was the letter put in the packet?
council received that,
Okay,
yes.
you should have a letter in there that summarizes what we would like to make is a recommendation that, that this be addressed with the Port Authority. One of the things that we're supposed to do as the board is state not only what the recommendation is, but what the cost would be. The cost of this step would be zero, because you're just sending a letter. So, at least for the municipality. But and talking to whoever you might be able to talk to, but we would like to, we have a strong recommendation that this be addressed with the Port Authority. There are a number of reasons why it's an important issue, but just on its surface, I think you can see that it's an issue. You have one hospital that the bus goes to all day long, multiple times throughout every day, and then you have another hospital it doesn't go to at all. And as you can see in the letter here, that the recommendation would be essentially that they take one of their routes and extend it 0.8 miles, which would then put it up to Forbes Hospital. So I do have to say, I don't know exactly how best council could address this. I certainly think a letter, there are a couple things in here. One would be sending a letter to the Port Authority, and as you can see there, we have been in contact with Dan DeBone, who is the Senior Government Relations Officer of Port Authority, and he said that he would not promise or authorize any change, but would be willing to consider such change.
Just to let you know, and to interrupt you, I agree with you. And I don't know if you knew it or not, there is some residents that are trying to work with Port Authority. Remember the gold buses that used to go around Monroeville? There's a movement, and I'm certainly doing what I can to help them as well, to maybe try to get even a small proportion of that back, because a lot of our seniors and our disabled did use those buses a lot. So there is some movement to do that as well. So, Mr. Little, if you will draft that letter, I'd be glad to sign that on behalf of the municipality to Port Authority. But there is some other folks working on to try to get some transportation issues going.
And if one last point in response to what you're saying, because I think it's very important. As a board, we are continuing to work on issues of transportation, and don't mean in any way to suggest that this is the only thing we're doing. It just seemed to be on its surface like the most obvious first step.
I just wanted to just say that you have other folks working in concert with, maybe not with you, but on the same issue, if you will.
Although working with us would be fine as well.
Well,
I mean,
I'll, if that's okay, I'll have some of the folks contact you.
That would be great. And you'll work on drafting the letter? And then
Yes.
Okay, thank you very
Dave,
much.
if I can ask you one thing, if there is anything else that is not in the letter that you drafted or your board drafted, my email is on our website. If you could send me some bullet points about what you would like to see in the letter, and obviously I'll give you a draft before it goes out, and obviously, the mayor obviously and council will get a copy. But if I just want to make sure I convey, what you're talking about. So if there's anything not in the letter that you sent to me and council and I, then send me an email with some bullet points.
We will do that.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Just a quick question, just
Yes.
purely out of curiosity. Forbes has been around for a lot longer than UPMC East. How did they not have a bus and UPMC East does?
How do they,
Why didn't,
I don't know. I mean, just to let you know, that, we have tried to address that question, and we don't, Beth.
Excuse me, I sit on a committee too. Forbes had a bus when Port Authority did all their cuts. They took the bus away from Forbes, and it cut service.
But isn't it true? We never did find out why.
Was that the original cut, going back a couple of years ago, when they cut the gold buses and all that?
Yes, and according to Dan DeBone, they will never, ever bring back the gold buses, so we should come up with something more creative.
is this something, there's an
That's not,
is this something we can get Forbes involved in also to
Well,
maybe
just a couple
help with?
We have had
Not that
Forbes.
idea, Hal, did it?
Well, I don't think.
No, I'm talking about mine, the gold buses.
He did.
What was Dan's response? I mean, is he
Well-
considering to take it to,
Just to finish the one response to the question, as far as, that was why it was taken away. We don't, when it was taken away, we don't know why. It's not clear why. Well, probably, but why, and that's certainly a real issue. However, why you would then have it at the one hospital and not the other is.
Makes no
certainly-
sense, I
yeah.
agree. I don't think anybody's going to disagree with that.
I can give you Port Authority's position on that if you'd like.
Please.
please?
That bus stop was along 48. When the hospital moved, they didn't actually put in a new bus stop, they just moved it up the road a little bit.
Are you
I would
serious?
also,
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
I would also have to
That's-
say, just to, as far as, because what you were saying about the gold buses, Mr. DeBeon did give that response. I don't know that anybody's taking that as the final word. It's like he gave his input, but, I mean, it would seem to be something that should still be able to be addressed as far as the gold
Well,
buses
let's just put it this
go.
way, it can't hurt for,
Yeah.
as the mayor and council backing, to at least try to do.
Where's the bus
whatever
start?
we
Like,
can
where's the
do.
route start?
I guess this route starts at Boyce Park, and I'm not sure if that's considered the starting point or the end point, but it's the bus that travels all through Monroeville into town, but it goes through Squirrel Hill and.
I think that's 61C or one of them.
it's
You know the route number?
61 something.
67?
67C or whatever,
Thank
yeah,
you.
one of them. Oh, 67.
Yeah, it's,
So the bus that goes down Haymaker and goes into Trafford can't pull into Forbes and.
that would be great. I don't know
Well, we didn't even look at the bus that goes down Haymaker because according to Port Authority, the 67 was our only choice.
Because I just remember as a police officer, that buses came down that route.
And I don't know if they do, but they may have all been cut from Haymaker with the
Oh,
budget
yeah.
cuts 2 years ago.
I would also have to say, though, I think we're taking the position that we would like to see, we want to see a bus that goes to Forbes. It's not our job to determine which bus it should be. It could be, you could put a new bus, you could pull a bus, we don't care, it should be a bus.
We'll address the issue, I assure you.
And I didn't want, Mr. Duncan, you had a question.
I just wanted to know what Mr. DeBone's response was, and I think you.
But he is willing to work with municipalities, so any power or authority that you can
Oh, sure.
exert would be much more than what we
We will,
could
I
ever
assure you
do.
we'll do that, because again, I've already been involved in another venue, but same issue, if you will, so.
So, to summarize, we want to just start with this one, and then we'll address the other ones later.
Very good.
And Mr. Lowe, I'll get that information to you. Sure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Once again, ladies and gentlemen, this is your time to address council. If you'll come on up. If you haven't signed in, please sign in, state your name, and that you just live in Monroeville, not your address.
Sure. My name is Nick Paradise. I live in Monroeville. My wife and I actually bought our home, moved into our home in November 2012, a few days before my son's first birthday. And one of the main reasons we chose Monroeville was because of, there were really three reasons: convenience to work, convenience to family, and because of the low tax rate. We want to stay in the east, and that was the lowest tax rate was in Monroeville. Little did we know that within a few months, we would see increases by the municipality, by the school board. This year, water increases that are going to keep coming, and now looking at more taxes, that are on the table. It's disappointing, and so I just encourage you to look, like people have said, to find ways to not raise the taxes anymore, find ways to work within it. I just think that's what people really look at, those three things. I think more than, of course, we want the police and the fire and that safety stuff, but, the amenities, that's what we all have to cut out of our budgets. We don't go to the movies as much anymore because our mortgage payment is $100-some more than what we initially thought it was going to be. So I just would, ask you guys to all look at that and try to find a way to avoid that because, you have seniors on fixed budgets, but we're all on fixed incomes. And if you want to generate more people to move in, that's the biggest challenge. We've already faced a lot, in the eastern suburbs with how challenging it is, but I don't think that increasing taxes is going to solve that at all. So, thank you.
Thank you, Nick. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, this is your time to address council. You certainly can do that.